So on March 6th, Democratic Socialists won all 5 party leadership positions in the Nevada State Democratic Party. Judith Whitmer was elected chair of the party. Not long after this victory, Whitmer received an email from the Democratic Party's executive director, Alana Mounts, quote, making clear that everyone on the small staff had resigned, including the party operations director, communications director, research director, and finance director.
Wild. Here to discuss DC Bureau Chief for The Intercept and our friend Ryan Grimm. Ryan, what the hell is going on here, man? Exactly.
Well, the Nevada establishment saw this coming. You know, they've seen it coming in, more or less since 2016 when the Sanders campaign organized so effectively to a kind of a draw with Hillary Clinton in the caucuses. Then 4 years later, Sanders stomped the field in those Nevada caucuses, and as a result of that, the party saw that internally the kind of Sanders wing was rising. DSA in Nevada since 2016 has kind of exploded in size and became kind of the operational backbone of a lot of the Sanders on the ground organizing. And so those folks spent the last year between the caucus and this party convention organizing to win basically every seat in the party leadership. They ran a slate of 5 candidates called the progressive slate that in coalition with DSA against the kind of establishment slate, the Reed Machine slate, which called themselves ironically Progressive Unity. Mm-hmm. The party recruited a very progressive chair candidate, somebody who had supported Bernie Sanders, had been his state chair, had supported Sanders in 2016 and 2020, hoping that if they put somebody up that the Bernie people liked and genuinely did like, that would be enough to say okay, we're not going to throw out every single member of the establishment, but the coalition did win. They won every single seat, and the party had been planning for that eventuality. John Ralston in Nevada reported that just ahead of the balloting, the party moved $450,000 out of the coffers and into the coffers of the DSCC, which has a lot of Reed allies in it. Wow. And so when they took, and also all of the consultants severed their contracts. So they took over a complete empty shell at this point.
Oh my God! So they raided the coffers. Yeah. Everybody resigned. Yeah. I'm sure the Reed Machine is not planning to just pack up, fold up their tent and go home. What are the plans from here?
And one of the more wild details to me was, and this is minor, but it was still wild to me, that in the email from Mounts to the incoming executive director, she said, also the staff will all be getting severance through the end of the month. And anybody who has quit a job knows that when you quit,
you don't get severance.
You quit. That's not. So what does that mean? So they're walking out with a lot of the money, just in their pockets. Some of it went to other organizations, but some of it went to their pockets. So what the Reed Machine is going to do, it does have a very tightly run statewide operation, not enough to fend off this assault on its control of the party apparatus, but it has a lot of connections to mining interests, to gambling interests, to big donors around the country. It has a lot of seasoned operatives. And so what they're going to do is they're going to set up basically a shadow party that just bypasses, and they've been public that this is their plan since this happened. They're going to bypass the party apparatus, raise money and spend it to reelect Catherine Cortez Masto in 2022. Though the DSA-backed slate has said that they also support Cortez Masto, that they've told her personally that they have no intention to primary her, but she's still back to the Progressive Unity slate. So to speak.
So Ryan,
some unity there.
Yeah. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Does this nuke Nevada's chance for being the first in terms of the caucus? Because I knew that was one way that Jamie Harrison and others were looking at changing post Iowa. New Hampshire probably not going to give up its status. I think even Jen Psaki was like, Nevada's looking pretty good right now. Doesn't seem any way that they would allow DSA people to do that. What do you think?
It certainly puts it at risk, and I think the calculation for Jamie Harrison and the DNC is going to be how thoroughly marginalized is this faction. Okay, yes, they officially control the Democratic Party in the state, but if we can completely strip them of any ability to do anything, then we can go on about our business as we had before. But if it looks like they're flexing real muscle and are players in the state, then I think you make a good point that the DNC might say, well, why should we empower our rivals by making them the first primary? On the other hand, they probably feel confident that in 2 years, they can make it hard enough for the new administration to accomplish anything that they can come back and then take power again 2 years from now. So they do have a kind of tactical decision to make. The establishment has a tactical decision to make whether to do what's best for Nevada and get this first in the nation spot, or try to spoil it so that there's nothing for the progressives to rule over.
Mm-hmm. I really wish we'd pulled that supercut of MSNBC practically in tears that day when Bernie won the caucuses there, Chris Jansen, and it looks like they're all here for Bernie Sanders. Yeah. Unfortunately, we didn't pull that clip, but I'm sure everybody knows where to find it. But Ryan, I do think there's a really interesting bigger story here that we've talked some about on this show. The difference between the Virginia Democratic Party, where you've now got a blue state, but it's very much built on this sort of liberal suburban coalition. And then Nevada's the polar opposite. It's really built on a working class base. Part of why Democrats have been able to consistently do well in Nevada, and this is partly to Reed's credit, by the way, is because they have this really strong and organized labor union presence. So what do you make? What are sort of the bigger picture lessons here for progressives? Is this model something to be replicated in other states? What do you think?
No, you're right, and it's an interesting parallel to draw. And as you said, Reed does deserve credit from just a kind of tactical and strategic perspective, from taking a state that was Republican dominated to one that is now not comfortably Democratic. These are all still very close races, but Democrats control both Senate seats, the governor's mansion, the state Senate, the state house, and are continuing to drive the Republicans deeper and deeper into the minority. And there was a lot of strategy that brought them there, along with some demographics, whereas on Virginia, it was almost purely kind of a demographic shift. As the population of Northern Virginia exploded, and as you continue to see this polarizing around education, and education and wealth, as people who had college degrees and our upper middle class became Democrats, Virginia shifted pretty rapidly blue. And so because it was more of a demographic structural shift than a strategic one, it's harder to just kind of come in and take over that apparatus. And so I think that's one of the differences here. And there are people worried that that this civil war is going to damage the ability of Democrats to continue to drive Republicans into the minority in Nevada, which is why it was kind of surprising that, to me at least, that the Reed machine didn't at least try to make an appearance to work together. Mm-hmm. Because say what you want, these people in Nevada do vote. There's they didn't do so well in the caucuses and in these elections because they have zero influence on the ground. These are people who have been working hard for years, knocking on doors, dragging people out. And Nevada is more of a working class state than Northern Virginia is, and so you need some type of a message to get to them. And it's clear that Bernie appeals to those voters, whereas the establishment Democratic Party did not.
Really interesting analysis there, Ryan. Pretty amazing that they'd be willing to sacrifice, their entire infrastructure just because these people won. Just absolutely wild. So thank you, man. Appreciate you joining us.
Great to see you.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm. Coming up, we're going to tell you about a New York mayoral poll. It looks pretty good for Andrew Yang. That's when Rising continues.